This video that I've made for you guys hopefully will give you an idea how to stick a Ruger 1022 inside a well airsoft stock. Always consider safety. Make sure your weapon is unloaded, bolt is pulled back, and wear eye protection and ear protection when using power tools. These well airsoft rifles can be purchased on eBay. Shop around and get the best price. I paid exactly $30 including shipping. The auction was for 1 cent with $29.99 shipping. And if you price around, you should be able to find a reputable dealer who will ship quickly to you for around $30. I wouldn't pay any more. To disassemble your P90 when you receive it, remove the magazine, and then take a very small screwdriver, gently pry up on the magazine release clip on each side, and the clip will pop out along with the spring. Now, what I've done to make things a lot easier, and so I didn't lose the spring or lose an eye, I epoxied the spring directly to the magazine release clip, and it makes it a heck of a lot easier to take apart and reassemble. Since this is the third stock that I've actually built, I've learned what works and what doesn't work. And what does work is to make a little tracing of the end of the receiver, a little cardboard template out of some thin cardboard, and use that as a tool to help figure out what you need to trim inside. It makes a big difference, and it's a lot easier than trying to put the receiver in and out. One of the modifications you'll have to do is to opening up the diameter of the area where the barrel exits the stock. Open it up about 5/8 of an inch, leaving about an 1/8 inch of material. This will be a little bit oversized, which is no problem. It's better. We'll be able to fill it in later. Most of the cutting that I did, I used a air die grinder with a 1/2 inch carbide deburring tool. It works real well to cut the holes, to remove the ribbing and other structure inside that you need to remove to fit the Ruger inside. I've already trimmed the ejection port hole in this half of the stock, and I've removed a lot of the plastic ribbing inside that supports the airsoft gearbox and other mechanisms. And the other areas in red are areas that I need to trim still. If you look at some of the photos I have of this finished gun, you'll see that I have added a red reflective tape on the safety selector that shows red when it's ready to fire. I would highly recommend that you do this to yours too, either using red paint or something similar. Every time I build one of these, I'm amazed how it seems that the stock was almost made to do this project. The tolerances, clearances, and other things that make this work, it's almost a fluke. An example would be the width of the Ruger receiver is 1 1/4 inches wide, exactly, and the width of the ejection port where the majority of the receiver sits is also 1 1/4 inch. You can't get any closer than that. The only thing that actually protrudes through the stock is the rear sights of the Ruger 1022, and I probably could have removed those, but I didn't want to alter the receiver in any way. And all I had to do was cut a small hole in the top, and it's almost flush, and it is covered by the dummy magazine, so you don't even see it. It's not even an issue. I simply use masking tape in order to mark out all my holes. It keeps the lines perfectly straight and gives you a nice mark to follow with the die grinder. Where the Ruger charging handle and ejection port is the only other obvious giveaway that this is not a real P90. I also use the masking tape to mark that out, and also to cut out that ejection port on the stock itself at the bottom where the Ruger magazines feed into. I recommend that you do all the work on the left side of the stock first, get it to fit correctly, and then proceed and do the right hand side of the stock. The right hand side of the stock will go much quicker, you'll find. And don't forget about using that template. That'll give you the rough dimensions to know where to trim at and what to leave. You want to leave as much of that plastic ribbing as you can, which will be used to actually support the receiver inside the stock. And what that'll do, if you can keep that receiver stationary and stabilized, will give you a much more accurate weapon. You don't want anything flopping around in there, and every time you shoot it, you know, the bullet goes in a different direction. So by doing this, it'll make it a lot better fit, and the receiver will just drop in there with no problem. Once you get everything close, start fitting the receiver and barrel in the stock and see where you're at. You may have to trim these additional spots here in order to get a nice good fit. As you probably are aware, the Ruger receiver has some floating pins in it that will need to be stabilized and keep from falling out or moving. And I did that with a strip of Lexan on each side. On the left side is 1 inch by 3 inches, and I made sure it was perfectly flat with that ejection port step. The Lexan is 1/4 inch thick, and it is slightly thinner than the space needed to fill. The additional 20 or 30 thousandths of an inch is filled in by a high quality epoxy. Although the trigger linkage appears very simple, it proved to be one of the more complicated aspects of this project. It's 1/8 inch stainless steel rod, welding filler rod is what it is, and it's bent at a 90-degree angle, and I drilled a hole in the P90 trigger and slipped it in that, and then bent it at it's less than 45-degree angle down, and then another 90-degree straight up that engages the trigger. There's probably an 1/8 inch gap between the trigger and the rod. This little plastic protrusion here, which is part of the stock, I left and actually cut a 1/8 inch little slot in it and used it as a guide for that stainless steel rod. If you don't do that, when you pull the trigger, the rod assembly will just bow up and you won't get a true solid push of the trigger. In this photo you can see the Lexan strip inside the ejection port resting directly against the receiver with 0 side-to-side play. I made that strip 1.1 wide by 5.5 inches long, and then once it was done I used the die grinder to trim it to match the ejection port hole. One of the last steps of fitting the Ruger into the stock is to use a small amount of epoxy at the end of that opening of the stock where the barrel exits. Since we overcut it, there'll be a little gap there, and we'll ensure that we have a perfect tight fit by using some epoxy. Put a little grease on the barrel, add the epoxy, and just set the receiver in there on both sides, and then clamp it together, screw it together, and it'll be a perfect fit. I hope this video has helped you understand how to do this project yourself, and will encourage you to give it a try yourself. Post a video of your project, and good luck. Be safe, and damn you, YouTube, for not letting me go over 10 minutes.
When the pimp's in the crib, mom, drop it like it's hot, drop it like it's hot, drop it like it's hot. When the pigs try to get at you, park it like it's hot, park it like it's hot.